Today we're going to gap our rings to get them ready to put on our pistons. Put our trusty cover away for a little bit. We are going to have to go get a piston out of the box. But yeah, right now we got the crank all installed. It's all good to go. Spins nice and free. Tolerances are right spot on. This is not oversized at all, which is really nice, and they're almost stock, especially here because that's where they redid them. But my ends are really, really good too, so definitely good to go. I probably should have sized my rings. I was going to size them earlier, but because I had to send it back to the machine shop to have it line boarded and honed, I was kind of stuck in a place that I couldn't do anything. So today I'm going to do nothing but the rings and get those done. That way by next week, hopefully I'll be putting the pistons together and pistons and rods together and getting those put in. Got some really neat stuff from Amazon that's really cheap but saves you a ton of money. I know the world likes the spring compressors that you squish down, but no, matter of fact, I got this from Summit Racing, 4.030, so it takes care of my 4-inch bore and my 30-inch over bore. It's tapered in, so all you got to do is put the piston with the rings in it, set it above your cylinder, and send it on down without the whole ratcheting thing. Yeah, you can only use it on one size piston, but I mean, how often are you going to rebuild an engine? If you do it a lot, yeah, I can understand having a few of these, but I'm not, so I'm good with what I have. So give me a couple minutes to get everything set up on my video, and we'll get you going and show you how we're going to gap these rings. Excuse me, spit face. Okay, in this video I am going to be gapping my rings. When you do have an engine machined, they are going to ask you for your pistons and have you bring them in because they're going to match your pistons to your cylinders. Really nice way of making sure that it's a good fit and that everything works well. Summit Racing, I ordered the piston end rings that came with it as a kit, and that way I could make sure that everything coincided with everything else. Every piston is exactly the same, so it makes it real easy to do your ring gapping and all that fun stuff. You know that they're all perfectly the same. Pistons all measure out exactly the same. Pistons come in these nice packages. You got your oil ring, your all that good stuff for all in one area. You've got your directions on how to do everything from Summit. Pretty good instructions. It's kind of interesting, but it shows you how you should have them installed, all that kind of fun stuff. So take the time to go ahead and read those, and that way you're ready to go. Do have one of the pistons, because when you do your rings, you're going to grab, make sure that's an oil ring, I don't want that one. There we go, 1, 2, oil. Okay, so when we open them up, if I can open them up, geez. Let me grab my scissors real quick out of my toolbox and snip it open. Go lay down, baby. Dogs are in here with me. They're my constant companions. These are going to be your oil rings. See how thin they are. Those go with your oil rings, and you can feel the springy things in there too. So those two go together and back in the box. And grab your next set of rings, be it top or middle. Doesn't really matter, you're going to gap them all anyway. There's my rings, all pretty molly rings. Pretty easy process. I'm going to show you the basics real quick. Pause here for a minute and then I'm going to set up my ring gapper. Went to Harbor Freight for $3.99, got me a feeler gauge. I have spark plug gappers in there, but I don't have any feeler gauges, and the spark plug gapper doesn't work really good for gapping your rings. I am going to double check the measurement, but because this is going to be a forced induction motor, for non-forced induction you set them to 24, the gap. For forced induction it's it's 28. So we're definitely going to have to do a little bit of work on them, that's for sure. So you'll just put your ring in, and yeah, they don't play well either. They're very, very tight. And you have a little gap in there. Find the gap that you're using. First, center it. Use your piston and go down a little bit with it so that they're nice and centered in there. You don't want to gap your pistons rings with them crooked at any way. You definitely want to push them a little ways in there and then check your gap. Being very careful not to drop your really nice aluminum piston. These are going to be 28. 3, 5, 15, they go the opposite direction. Brand new, so they're covered in oil. 24, 25, 26, 28. There's 28 right there. Take your time when doing this, when you're filing them. You don't want it. You can always take a little bit more off, but you can't put any more back on. And that cost me a set of rings. Put it in here, and these are so tight, it won't even go in there. There's probably 3 thousandths maybe clearance in there. They're tight. So definitely we're gonna have to take a little bit off so that at least we can get the gapper in there. But they're 028 70 millimeter, I think, 0.70 millimeter. But that kind of shows you. So we'll go ahead and get everything set up. Excuse me. Get everything set up and show you how to grind these rings. So we'll pause you for now and be back in a minute. Okay. This is my ring gapper. I'm not going to pause it, I'm just going to cut chunks out of it. My ring gapper comes with a little tool for spinning it. I got this from Summit Racing. Relatively inexpensive, but a nice quality little piece. Don't get too cheap on these kind of things because cheap means not that good. But as you see, it's just a wheel. Take your As I've said throughout this entire build, double check everything. Just to be safe, I went through, read my instructions on my rings to ensure that I'm setting them at the right gaps. It does give you a breakdown of what your end gap should be, so it definitely does help. It gives you some really good pointers here. Offers caster forged piston on your top ring or hypertonic. And then all pistons on the second ring and all pistons on the oil rail. So the only ring that really changes a lot between the two types of pistons is that top ring. They say you have one for street strip, circle track, drag racing, forced induction up to 15, over 15, nitrous up to 200, nitrous over 200, and it gives you a different calculation for each. In my particular case, it's forced induction up to 15 pounds, so it's bore times 0.006 for a cast or forged piston, and bore times 0.009 for, or I'm sorry, 0.006 for caster forged, and 0.0085 for hypertonic. So I'm going to double check these numbers to make sure they're right. I'm going to go with their specifications on their ring. That way I know for sure I'm following their recommended guidelines. And that way if it blows apart, I go, hey, you said to do it like this. So after I get that done, I will get back with you, verify what I'm doing, and we'll continue to move from there. So what I've done is looked up my part number and my pistons real quick. I want to verify everything before I start cutting away at piston rings and that type of thing. The pistons that are in this one are Summit brand 17351Cs, board 30 over. It's a coated hypertectic piston, if I could spell or speak, I should say. So I do need to follow their recommendations based on that. And like I said, it's board times 0.0085 for the top ring, 0.0065 for the middle ring, and then the bottom or the oil scraper is 15. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're going to be setting those gaps. So now that we've got our true and accurate number, I'll write them down, and then we'll start making sure these rings are good. And I'll get back with you when I get everything set up on the ring. As you can see by the ring that's in there, you can't even get the feeler gauge on it. See how thin that is in there? There's no gap whatsoever. You definitely don't want to do that, because what happens is when your engine heats up and expands, that becomes a nightmare. So I'll be right back. We'll get everything set up to start grinding away, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to bore you with the walking back and forth with all the rings. You got 8 for 8 on the top, 8 in the middle, and 8 oil rings. Like I say, this one I've heard 28. They say 34. Like I said, I'm going to go with their recommendations. But to basically do it, you have these 2 really nice little pins here that hold your ring in place, and then you turn your crank and you take your ring in by hand, and then you grind away at it. Now, as I've said before, don't go crazy on these. A little bit at a time. You don't need to take a ton of material off and end up having to go back later and replace them. But yeah, if you can see it, I don't know if you can, but you can see the material's already been removed, so we definitely want to check it every time we do it, and just keep walking back and forth until we get this right. Don't go crazy is all I'm going to say. I'll get back to you after I get them all done.